The checkpoint erupted in chaos at 0347 hours. Automatic weapons fire shattered the pre-dawn silence across the Serbian border. 3 armored vehicles burning, 12 soldiers down. The attackers melted back into the forest like smoke, leaving behind only questions and the kind of precision that spoke of professional training. But when the forensics team arrived and started counting bullet holes, they found something that made seasoned investigators go pale. Every shot was a headshot. Every single one. From distances that shouldn't have been possible in that terrain. The ballistics report would later show that all kills came from a single weapon, fired by someone who treated impossible shots like routine target practice. Want to know why the entire NATO command structure went into emergency session after reading that report? Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from. And if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed, because tomorrow I've saved something extra special for you. The morning briefing room at Camp Bondsteel hummed with tension. Thick enough to cut with a knife. Fluorescent lights cast harsh shadows across topographical maps spread across every available surface. The smell of burnt coffee mixed with the metallic taste of fear that settled in when career soldiers realized they were dealing with something outside their experience. Colonel Marcus Brennan stood at the head of the conference table, his weathered hands gripping intelligence reports that had arrived via encrypted channels 30 minutes earlier. 3 decades of military service had taught him to read between the lines of official communications, but these reports defied every tactical assumption he'd built his career on. The forensics data was impossible. The ballistics analysis suggested capabilities that belonged in fiction rather than field reports, yet the evidence was undeniable. Someone had methodically eliminated an entire patrol unit with the kind of precision that redefined what was possible with small arms fire. Major Sarah Chun, his intelligence officer, spread reconnaissance photos across the table with the careful movements of someone handling radioactive material. The images showed the checkpoint from multiple angles, each one revealing details that made the situation more unsettling. No brass casings, no boot prints. No physical evidence that anyone had been within a kilometer of the engagement zone. Just the mathematical precision of death delivered from ranges that challenged the laws of physics. The perpetrator had to be in the tree line, Chun reported, her voice steady despite the impossibility of what she was describing. Based on trajectory analysis, the shots originated from positions that would require line of sight through dense forest canopy. At ranges exceeding 2 kilometers, in complete darkness, with environmental conditions that should have made accurate fire impossible. Brennan studied the photographs with the focused intensity of someone who'd spent years analyzing similar scenes. The difference was that every previous engagement had followed predictable patterns. Attackers left traces. They made mistakes. They operated within the boundaries of human limitations. This was something else entirely. The precision spoke of someone who'd transcended normal military training and entered territory that existed only in classified research programs. Lieutenant Jake Morrison, fresh from intelligence school and still young enough to believe in straightforward answers, cleared his throat nervously. "Sir, could this be some kind of new technology? Advanced optics, computer-assisted targeting systems, something we haven't seen before?" The question hung in the air like smoke from an extinguished cigarette. Logical, but somehow insufficient to explain what they were examining. Brennan's expression suggested he'd already considered and dismissed that possibility. Technology could enhance human performance, but it couldn't overcome fundamental limitations of physics and environment. What they were looking at required something more than equipment. It required someone who'd spent years perfecting capabilities that existed at the absolute edge of human potential. Chun pulled up digital files on her tablet, scrolling through databases that most personnel didn't know existed. "I've been running comparisons against known sniper capabilities," she said quietly. "Elite units, special operations, counter-terrorist specialists. The closest match in our records for this kind of precision comes from a program that was terminated 8 years ago, the Ghost Valley Initiative. The name landed in the briefing room like a stone dropped into still water, creating ripples of recognition among the senior staff. Morrison looked confused, but the older personnel exchanged glances that suggested they'd heard whispers about operations that existed in the shadows of official military structure. Brennan felt something cold settle in his stomach, the kind of professional intuition that came from years of dealing with situations that couldn't be resolved through conventional methods. Chun continued reading from her tablet, her voice carrying the careful tone of someone delivering information that changed everything. The initiative was designed to develop extreme long-range capabilities under adverse conditions. Subjects underwent training that pushed human performance beyond documented limits. The program was classified above normal security levels and officially disbanded after a single deployment. All records were sealed. All personnel were presumed killed in action during the final mission. The silence that followed was punctuated only by the electronic hum of equipment and the distant sound of helicopters conducting routine patrols. Brennan processed the implications with the systematic approach of someone who'd learned to separate emotion from tactical analysis. If the personnel were confirmed dead, then what they were dealing with represented either a catastrophic intelligence failure or something far more complicated. Morrison's voice cracked slightly as he asked the question that everyone was thinking, but nobody wanted to voice. "Sir, if the Ghost Valley operatives were confirmed killed, then who executed this attack?" The answer came from an unexpected source. The secure communication system at the far end of the room activated with a tone that indicated incoming transmission on channels reserved for crisis situations. The voice that emerged from the speakers was crisp, authoritative, and carried the weight of decisions made in rooms where normal rules didn't apply. "Colonel Brennan, you are to suspend all investigation into the checkpoint incident. Reclassify all evidence as compartmentalized above your clearance level. Await further instructions." Brennan looked around the room at the faces of his staff, seeing his own confusion reflected in their expressions. The transmission had bypassed normal command channels and arrived with authentication codes that he recognized as carrying authority beyond his experience. "With respect, sir, this incident occurred in my area of responsibility. I need to understand what we're dealing with to protect my personnel." Preparing and narrating this story took us a lot of time, so if you are enjoying it, subscribe to our channel. It means a lot to us. Now back to the story. The response came without hesitation, delivered in the same calm tone that suggested this conversation was proceeding exactly according to someone's plan. "You're not dealing with a threat, Colonel. You're dealing with a reactivated asset. Someone who was never actually buried, just placed in deep cover until circumstances required her return to active status." The line went dead without ceremony, leaving Brennan with more questions than answers and the growing certainty that his morning briefing had just become the setting for something that wouldn't appear in any official reports. He looked at his assembled staff, recognizing the moment when routine military operations transformed into something that existed in the spaces between official documentation. Chun's tablet chimed with an incoming message that made her screen flicker between standard interface and something that looked like it belonged in a classified research facility. The message was brief, containing only coordinates and a time stamp that indicated a meeting scheduled for later that day. No explanation, no context, just the kind of minimal communication that suggested the sender assumed the recipient would understand the significance without elaboration. The coordinates led to a location that didn't appear on any standard military maps, a facility that existed in the gap between what was documented and what was necessary for operations that required absolute secrecy. Brennan recognized the area from his early career assignments, when he'd been involved in missions that were classified above his current clearance level and never discussed in official channels. Chun began the process of securing all physical evidence related to the checkpoint incident, following protocols that she'd hoped never to use, but had been trained to implement when normal procedures proved inadequate. The photographs were transferred to storage systems that existed parallel to standard military databases. The forensics reports were encrypted using codes that would make them inaccessible to anyone without specific authorization. Morrison watched the classification process with the fascination of someone witnessing procedures that weren't covered in any training manual. The systematic removal of evidence from official channels, the reclassification of personnel records, the quiet efficiency with which his superiors handled information that challenged everything he thought he understood about military operations. As the morning progressed, Brennan found himself preparing for a meeting that would either provide answers or deepen the mystery surrounding the checkpoint incident. He gathered the classified materials that hadn't been secured above his clearance level, knowing that he was about to enter territory where his normal understanding of command, structure, and operational authority would prove inadequate. The drive to the coordinates took him through terrain that looked unremarkable from the surface but carried the weight of history that most people would never know existed. Every kilometer brought him closer to answers that would reshape his understanding of what was possible within the boundaries of official military operations. The facility appeared gradually, emerging from the landscape like something that had been designed to remain invisible until circumstances required its revelation. Security measures were subtle but comprehensive. The kind of protection that suggested the location housed capabilities that were valuable enough to justify resources that existed outside normal military budgets. The personnel who staffed the facility moved with the quiet efficiency of people who'd learned to operate in environments where every detail mattered and mistakes had consequences that rippled far beyond the immediate mission. Inside the main building, Brennan was escorted through corridors that felt more like a research facility than a military installation. The architecture suggested permanence and significant investment, the kind of infrastructure that required years of planning and resources that came from classification levels above normal military operations. He was led to a briefing room that contained equipment he didn't recognize and displays that showed information he wasn't cleared to understand. The woman who entered the room moved with the controlled precision of someone who'd spent years perfecting economy of movement. She wasn't wearing any standard military uniform, just dark tactical clothing that suggested function over ceremony. But on her left shoulder, clearly visible despite the subdued lighting, was a patch that made Brennan's breath catch. A stylized mountain peak with a single star, the insignia of the Ghost Valley Initiative. She didn't introduce herself or attempt to establish her authority through conventional means. Instead, she placed a photograph on the table between them, an image that provided more context than any verbal explanation could have achieved. The photograph showed a woman in ghillie suit emerging from forest terrain, carrying specialized equipment that spoke of capabilities beyond standard military training. The woman in the photograph was unmistakably the same person standing in the briefing room. The operational designation was Wraith 7, she said quietly, her voice carrying the controlled tone of someone who'd learned to make every communication count. The Ghost Valley Initiative developed capabilities that existed at the intersection of human potential and technological enhancement. The program wasn't disbanded. It was placed in deep cover until circumstances required reactivation of assets that couldn't be maintained through normal channels. Brennan studied the photograph, recognizing details that connected to the checkpoint incident in ways that redefined everything he thought he understood about the attack. The specialized equipment, the precision shooting capabilities, the ability to operate in environments that challenged every assumption about what was possible with conventional weapon systems. The checkpoint incident was a field test, she continued, each word delivered with the precision of someone who'd learned to convey maximum information with minimal communication. Hostile forces had been using the area to smuggle advanced weapon systems that posed a threat to regional stability. Normal interdiction methods had proven ineffective. The situation required capabilities that existed outside conventional military. Response: the room fell silent as Brennan processed the implications of what he was hearing. The systematic elimination of an entire patrol unit wasn't random violence or terrorist activity. It was a precision military operation conducted by someone whose training had prepared her for situations that existed beyond the boundaries of normal warfare. The ballistics analysis that had seemed impossible suddenly made sense when viewed through the lens of capabilities that had been developed specifically to transcend conventional limitations. She moved to a display screen that activated at her approach, showing satellite imagery of the checkpoint area with overlays that revealed details invisible to standard reconnaissance. The tactical analysis demonstrated shooting positions that would have been impossible for conventional snipers, but became achievable when viewed through the lens of training that pushed human performance beyond documented limits. The elimination was conducted from positions that maintained complete concealment while providing line of sight to targets at ranges exceeding standard engagement distances. Environmental factors that would have defeated conventional marksmanship were compensated for through techniques that required years of specialized training to master. The precision that had seemed impossible was actually the result of systematic preparation for scenarios that existed at the absolute edge of tactical possibility. Brennan found himself looking at someone whose capabilities had been developed to address threats that couldn't be resolved through conventional military methods. The woman standing before him represented the convergence of human potential and technological enhancement, trained to operate in environments where normal rules didn't apply and success required, transcending the limitations that defined conventional warfare. The photograph on the table showed more than just a successful mission. It revealed someone who'd been prepared for situations that existed in the spaces between official documentation and operational necessity. The Ghost Valley Initiative hadn't been disbanded. It had been placed in reserve until circumstances required the reactivation of capabilities that couldn't be maintained through normal channels. As the briefing continued, Brennan began to understand that the checkpoint incident represented something far more complex than random violence or terrorist activity. It was a demonstration of capabilities that existed parallel to conventional military operations, conducted by someone whose training had prepared her for scenarios that challenged every assumption about what was possible within the boundaries of official military structure. The woman who called herself Wraith 7 had spent years perfecting abilities that existed at the intersection of human potential and technological enhancement. The precision that had seemed impossible was actually the result of systematic preparation for situations that required transcending the limitations that define conventional military operations. She was a living example of what became possible when training pushed human performance beyond documented limits. The morning that had started with impossible ballistics reports and tactical analysis that defied explanation had evolved into something that redefined Brennan's understanding of military capabilities. He was looking at someone whose existence challenged every assumption about what was possible within the boundaries of official military operations. Someone who represented the convergence of human potential and systematic preparation for scenarios that existed at the absolute edge of tactical possibility. The checkpoint incident wasn't an attack. It was a field demonstration of capabilities that had been developed to address threats that couldn't be resolved through conventional methods. The woman standing before him was proof that some operations required transcending the limitations that define normal military structure, and that the most effective responses to certain threats came from capabilities that existed in the spaces between official documentation and operational necessity. The secure elevator descended through levels that didn't appear on any building schematics. each floor representing deeper classification levels that required authorization beyond normal military channels. Brennan felt the pressure change in his ears as they moved through reinforced barriers designed to contain both sound and electronic emissions. The woman beside him maintained the same composed silence that had characterized their entire interaction, her presence somehow making the confined space feel larger rather than smaller. When the doors opened, they revealed a corridor that belonged in a research facility rather than a military installation. The walls were lined with observation windows that looked into laboratories containing equipment he didn't recognize. Scientists in white coats moved between workstations with the focused intensity of people engaged in research that couldn't be discussed outside these walls. The air carried the sterile scent of advanced technology mixed with something that suggested years of intensive development. She led him through a series of security checkpoints that verified his identity through methods he'd never encountered. Biometric scanners that analyzed patterns beyond fingerprints and retinal recognition. Systems that seemed to evaluate not just his physical characteristics, but something deeper, more fundamental about who he was and why he was authorized to be in this location. Each checkpoint represented another layer of protection around capabilities that clearly required absolute secrecy. The main laboratory opened before them like a cathedral dedicated to human potential. Equipment lined the walls in configurations that suggested years of systematic research into enhancing human performance beyond documented limits. Computer systems displayed data streams that tracked variables he couldn't identify. Monitoring equipment measured biological functions with precision that exceeded anything he'd seen in standard medical facilities. Dr. Elena Vasquez approached from across the laboratory, her movements carrying the authority of someone who'd spent decades pushing the boundaries of what was possible. She wore the kind of expression that suggested she was about to explain concepts that challenged fundamental assumptions about human limitations. Her eyes held the focused intensity of a researcher who devoted her career to questions that existed at the intersection of science and military necessity. "Colonel Brennan," she said by way of introduction, her voice carrying the controlled tone of someone who dealt with classified information as a matter of routine. "Welcome to the Real Ghost Valley Initiative. What you're about to see represents 15 years of research into enhancing human performance for scenarios that conventional training cannot address. The capabilities demonstrated at your checkpoint incident are just one application of methodologies we've developed for situations that require transcending normal limitations." She gestured toward a series of displays that showed data streams tracking multiple variables simultaneously: heart rate, neural activity, muscle tension, reaction times, accuracy measurements, environmental adaptation indices. The information suggested monitoring systems that could analyze human performance with precision that belonged in science fiction rather than military research facilities. The woman known as Wraith 7 moved to a workstation where she began interfacing with systems that responded to her presence with the smooth efficiency of technology designed specifically for her use. Screens activated automatically, displaying training records that documented years of systematic development. The data showed progression curves that demonstrated capabilities improving far beyond what should have been possible through conventional methods. "Your traditional military training assumes certain limitations," Dr. Vasquez continued, her words carrying the weight of research that had challenged every assumption about human potential. "Maximum effective range for small arms fire. Environmental factors that degrade accuracy. Physical stress that compromises performance. We discovered that these limitations exist primarily in training methodologies rather than actual human capability." Brennan studied the displays, trying to process information that redefined everything he thought he understood about marksmanship and tactical operations. The training records showed shooting exercises conducted under conditions that seemed designed to be impossible. Targets engaged at distances that exceeded conventional weapons ranges. Accuracy maintained in environmental conditions that should have made precision fire unachievable. The Ghost Valley Initiative began with a simple question. Dr. Vasquez explained, moving between workstations with the familiarity of someone who'd spent years in this environment. What becomes possible when you remove artificial limitations from training protocols? When you push human development beyond the boundaries that conventional military education assumes are fixed. She activated a display that showed video footage of training exercises that challenged every assumption about what was achievable with small arms weapons. Shots fired in complete darkness with accuracy that suggested the operator could see in conditions where normal vision was impossible. Targets engaged through environmental obstacles that should have prevented line of sight. Precision maintained under physical stress that would have compromised normal marksmanship capabilities. The methodology required rethinking fundamental assumptions about human potential. Dr. Vasquez continued, her voice carrying the excitement of a researcher who discovered something that transcended existing knowledge. We developed training protocols that enhance not just physical capabilities, but neurological processing speed, sensory acuity, and stress adaptation beyond documented human norms. Wraith 7 remained at her workstation, interfacing with systems that displayed her training progression over years of systematic development. The data showed capabilities that had been enhanced through methodologies that existed at the cutting edge of human performance research. Neural pathway optimization, sensory enhancement protocols, stress adaptation training that had prepared her for scenarios that conventional military operations couldn't address. The checkpoint incident represented a practical application of capabilities that had been developed through years of research into transcending human limitations. Dr. Vasquez explained, her words carrying the weight of systematic scientific investigation. The precision that seemed impossible was actually the result of training protocols that enhanced human performance beyond conventional boundaries. Brennan found himself looking at research that challenged every assumption about what was possible within the framework of military training. The systematic enhancement of human capabilities through methodologies that pushed performance beyond documented limits. The development of skills that existed at the intersection of human potential and technological augmentation. The display showed training exercises that would have been considered impossible under conventional military protocols. Marksmanship development that enhanced accuracy beyond documented human norms. Environmental adaptation training that prepared operators for conditions that challenged fundamental assumptions about human limitations. Stress management protocols that maintained performance under circumstances that would have compromised conventional capabilities. Dr. Vasquez moved to another set of displays that showed real-time monitoring of Wraith 7's current physiological status. The data revealed someone whose baseline capabilities exceeded normal human parameters. Neural processing speed, sensory acuity, stress response, physical coordination, all enhanced beyond documented human norms through training methodologies that had pushed development beyond conventional boundaries. The enhancement isn't technological augmentation, Dr. Vasquez clarified, her voice carrying the precision of someone who'd spent years explaining complex concepts to people who lacked the background to understand the implications. It's systematic optimization of existing human potential through training protocols that remove artificial limitations imposed by conventional military education. She gestured toward displays that showed comparative analysis between conventional military training outcomes and Ghost Valley Initiative results. The differences were dramatic enough to suggest two different species rather than variations in training methodology. Accuracy rates that exceeded documented human capabilities. Response times that challenged assumptions about neurological processing speed. Stress adaptation that maintained performance under conditions that would have compromised Normal human function. The checkpoint incident demonstrated capabilities that had been developed specifically for scenarios where conventional military response proved inadequate. Dr. Vasquez explained, her words carrying the weight of research that had anticipated the need for enhanced human performance in situations that existed beyond normal operational parameters. Brennan studied the training records, trying to understand how systematic enhancement of human capabilities could produce results that seemed to transcend physical laws. The methodologies represented years of research into optimizing human performance through protocols that challenged every assumption about the boundaries of what was achievable through training. Wraith 7 turned from her workstation, her movement, drawing attention to equipment that had been designed specifically for her enhanced capabilities. Weapon systems that took advantage of accuracy that exceeded normal human limitations. Optical enhancement that worked in conjunction with sensory capabilities that had been developed beyond conventional parameters. Technology that amplified rather than replaced human potential that had been systematically optimized. The research represented a convergence of human potential and scientific methodology that had produced capabilities existing at the absolute edge of what was possible. Dr. Vasquez continued, her voice carrying the excitement of discovery that had challenged fundamental assumptions about human limitations. The enhancement protocols developed through the Ghost Valley initiative demonstrated that conventional training methods imposed artificial boundaries on human development. The laboratory around them contained equipment that supported training methodologies designed to transcend normal human limitations. Environmental chambers that simulated conditions beyond what conventional military training addressed. Monitoring systems that tracked enhancement progression with precision that exceeded standard medical capabilities. Technology that facilitated the development of human potential beyond documented boundaries. Brennan found himself surrounded by research that redefined his understanding of what was possible within the framework of military training. The systematic enhancement of human capabilities through methodologies that pushed performance beyond conventional limits. The development of skills that existed at the intersection of human potential and scientific optimization. The displays continued showing training progression data that documented years of systematic development. Neural pathway enhancement that increased processing speed beyond normal human parameters. Sensory optimization that enabled perception under conditions where conventional human capabilities would have been inadequate. Physical conditioning that maintained performance under stress levels that would have compromised normal human function. Dr. Vasquez moved between workstations, her expertise evident in how she interpreted data streams that tracked multiple enhancement variables simultaneously. The research represented years of investigation into optimizing human potential through training protocols that challenged every assumption about the boundaries of what was achievable through systematic development. The checkpoint incident was just one demonstration of capabilities that had been developed for scenarios requiring performance beyond conventional military parameters. She explained, her words carrying the weight of research that had anticipated operational requirements existing outside normal tactical boundaries. Wraith 7 remained at her interface station, her interaction with the systems, revealing the depth of integration between enhanced human capabilities and supporting technology. The equipment responded to her presence with efficiency that suggested years of optimization, technology designed to amplify rather than replace human potential that had been systematically enhanced beyond conventional limitations. The enhancement protocols represented a convergence of human potential and scientific methodology that had produced results challenging fundamental assumptions about the boundaries of human capability. Dr. Vasquez continued, her voice carrying the precision of research that had transcended existing knowledge about human development. Brennan studied the comprehensive displays, trying to process information that redefined everything he thought he understood about military training and human potential. The systematic enhancement of capabilities through methodologies that pushed performance beyond documented limits. The development of skills that existed at the intersection of human potential and scientific optimization designed for scenarios that conventional training couldn't address. The laboratory represented years of research into questions that existed at the cutting edge of human performance enhancement. Equipment that supported training methodologies designed to transcend normal limitations. Monitoring systems that tracked development with precision that exceeded standard capabilities. Technology that facilitated the optimization of human potential. Beyond conventional boundaries, Dr. Vasquez activated another series of displays that showed comparative analysis between conventional military outcomes and Ghost Valley Initiative results. The differences suggested systematic enhancement of human capabilities through training protocols that challenged every assumption about the boundaries of what was achievable through development methodologies that existed beyond normal military parameters. The research demonstrated that human potential could be enhanced far beyond conventional limitations through systematic training protocols that removed artificial boundaries imposed by traditional military education, she explained. Her words carrying the weight of discovery that had challenged fundamental assumptions about human capability. Wraith 7's interaction with the laboratory systems revealed integration between enhanced human capabilities and supporting technology that had been developed specifically for her optimized performance parameters. The equipment amplified rather than replaced human potential that had been systematically enhanced through training methodologies existing beyond conventional military boundaries. The checkpoint incident represented practical application of capabilities that had been developed through years of research into transcending human limitations for scenarios that conventional military training couldn't address, Dr. Vasquez continued, her voice carrying the excitement of research that had produced results, challenging every assumption about the boundaries of human potential. Brennan found himself surrounded by evidence of systematic human enhancement through methodologies that pushed capabilities beyond documented limits. The development of skills that existed at the intersection of human potential and scientific optimization designed for operational requirements beyond conventional military parameters. The laboratory contained equipment supporting training protocols that challenged every assumption about human limitations. Environmental chambers simulating conditions beyond conventional military training parameters. Monitoring systems tracking enhancement progression with precision exceeding standard medical capabilities. Technology facilitating the development of human potential beyond documented boundaries through systematic optimization methodologies. Dr. Vasquez moved between displays showing real-time data streams that tracked multiple enhancement variables simultaneously. Neural processing optimization that increased reaction speed beyond normal human parameters. Sensory enhancement that enabled perception under conditions where conventional capabilities would have been inadequate. Physical conditioning maintaining performance under stress levels that would have compromised normal human function. The research represented years of investigation into optimizing human potential through training protocols that existed at the cutting edge of performance enhancement, she explained, her words carrying the precision of scientific methodology that had transcended existing knowledge about human development capabilities. Wraith 7's continued interaction with the laboratory systems demonstrated the depth of integration between enhanced human performance and supporting technology designed specifically for her optimized capabilities. The equipment responded with efficiency suggesting years of development, technology created to amplify human potential that had been systematically enhanced beyond conventional limitations through training methodologies existing outside normal military parameters. The enhancement protocols represented convergence of human potential and scientific research that had produced capabilities challenging fundamental assumptions about the boundaries of what was achievable through systematic development. Dr. Vasquez continued, her voice carrying the weight of discovery that had redefined understanding of human limitations. Brennan studied the comprehensive data displays, processing information that challenged everything he thought. He understood about military training and human capability enhancement, the systematic optimization of performance through methodologies that pushed development beyond documented limits for scenarios that CONVENTIONAL training protocols couldn't adequately address. The laboratory around them represented the culmination of research into questions existing at the intersection of human potential and scientific advancement. Equipment supporting training methodologies designed to transcend normal limitations. Through systematic enhancement protocols, monitoring systems tracking development with precision that exceeded standard capabilities for optimizing human potential beyond conventional boundaries, Dr. Vasquez activated final displays showing the complete scope of Ghost Valley Initiative research outcomes. Years of systematic investigation into enhancing human capabilities through training protocols that challenged every assumption about the boundaries of what was achievable through development methodologies existing beyond normal military parameters. For scenarios requiring performance that transcended conventional limitations, the observation deck overlooked a training facility that stretched beyond the visible horizon, containing environments that simulated every conceivable operational scenario. Arctic conditions, desert heat, urban warfare zones, mountain terrain. Each environment meticulously crafted to push human performance beyond conventional boundaries. Through reinforced glass, Brennan could see figures moving through exercises that defied every assumption about human limitations. Dr. Vasquez gestured toward the nearest training zone where a single operator was engaging targets at distances that exceeded standard rifle capabilities. The shots were fired in rapid succession, each one finding its mark despite environmental conditions that should have made accurate fire impossible. Wind patterns that would have defeated conventional marksmanship, lighting conditions that challenged normal vision, stress factors that would have compromised typical human performance. What you're witnessing represents the culmination of 15 years of research into optimizing human potential, Dr. Vasquez explained, her voice carrying the satisfaction of someone who devoted her career to questions that existed at the cutting edge of scientific possibility. The operator you're observing has undergone enhancement protocols that pushed her capabilities beyond documented human norms through systematic training methodologies that challenged every assumption about biological limitations. Wraith 7 moved to a control station where she began accessing systems that displayed her complete training history. Years of systematic development scrolled across multiple screens, documenting progression through enhancement protocols that had transformed human potential into something that transcended conventional military capabilities. Neural pathway optimization, sensory enhancement, stress adaptation, physical conditioning, all developed through methodologies that existed beyond normal training parameters. The data stream showed real-time monitoring of her current performance status, physiological indicators that exceeded baseline human norms, neural processing speed that enabled split-second decision-making under extreme stress, sensory acuity that functioned effectively in conditions where normal human perception would have been inadequate. The enhancement represented systematic optimization of existing human potential rather than technological augmentation. Brennan studied the training records with the focused attention of someone whose entire understanding of military capabilities was being fundamentally challenged. The progression data showed development curves that should have been impossible according to conventional training doctrine. Accuracy improvements that exceeded documented human potential. Reaction time enhancement that challenged assumptions about neurological processing speed. Stress management that maintained performance under conditions that would have compromised normal human function. The Ghost Valley Initiative began with the recognition that conventional military training imposed artificial limitations on human development. Dr. Vasquez continued, her words carrying the weight of research that had challenged fundamental assumptions about human capability. Traditional protocols assumed certain boundaries were fixed rather than recognizing them as training artifacts that could be transcended through systematic enhancement methodologies. She activated displays that showed comparative analysis between conventional military training outcomes and Ghost Valley Initiative results. The differences were dramatic enough to suggest entirely different species rather than variations in training approach. Marksmanship capabilities that exceeded documented human norms, environmental adaptation that functioned effectively under conditions that challenged conventional limitations, performance maintenance under stress levels that would have compromised normal human function. The enhancement protocols required rethinking basic assumptions about human potential. Dr. Vasquez explained, moving between workstations with the expertise of someone who'd spent years perfecting methodologies that pushed development beyond conventional boundaries. Neural pathway optimization through targeted cognitive training, sensory enhancement that improved perception beyond normal human parameters, physical conditioning that maintained capabilities under extreme operational stress. Wraith 7's interaction with the laboratory systems demonstrated integration between enhanced human performance and supporting technology that had been developed specifically for her optimized capabilities. Equipment that amplified rather than replaced human potential. Systems that worked in conjunction with enhanced sensory acuity and processing speed. Technology designed to support rather than substitute for human excellence that had been systematically developed. The checkpoint incident represented practical application of capabilities that had been enhanced through years of systematic development beyond conventional military parameters. Dr. Vasquez continued, her voice carrying the precision of research that had anticipated operational requirements existing outside normal tactical boundaries. The precision that seemed impossible was actually the result of training protocols that had optimized human potential beyond documented limitations. Brennan found himself processing information that redefined everything he thought he understood about military training and human capability. The systematic enhancement of performance through methodologies that challenged every assumption about biological boundaries. The development of skills that existed at the intersection of human potential and scientific optimization designed for scenarios that conventional training couldn't adequately address. The laboratory displays continued, showing real-time data streams that tracked multiple enhancement variables simultaneously. Neural activity patterns that exceeded normal human parameters, sensory input processing that functioned effectively under conditions where conventional perception would have been inadequate, stress response optimization that maintained performance. Under extreme operational pressure, Dr. Vasquez moved to a final workstation where she accessed systems that revealed the complete scope of Ghost Valley Initiative research. Years of investigation into questions that existed at the cutting edge of human performance enhancement, methodologies that had produced capabilities challenging fundamental assumptions about the boundaries of human potential, training protocols that transcended conventional military limitations through systematic optimization. The enhancement represents convergence of human potential and scientific methodology that produced results existing at the absolute edge of what's achievable through systematic development. She explained, her words carrying the excitement of discovery that had challenged existing knowledge about human limitations. The capabilities demonstrated at your checkpoint incident are just one application of methodologies we've perfected for scenarios requiring performance beyond conventional parameters. Wraith 7 turned from her interface station, her movement, revealing equipment that had been designed specifically for her enhanced capabilities. Weapon systems that took advantage of accuracy exceeding normal human limitations. Optical enhancement that worked in conjunction with sensory capabilities developed beyond conventional parameters. Technology that amplified human potential that had been systematically optimized through training methodologies existing outside normal military boundaries. The research facility around them contained evidence of years of investigation into optimizing human performance through protocols that challenged every assumption about biological limitations. Environmental chambers that simulated conditions beyond conventional training parameters. Monitoring systems that tracked enhancement progression with precision exceeding standard medical capabilities. Technology that facilitated development of human potential beyond documented boundaries. Brennan studied the comprehensive displays, trying to understand how systematic enhancement could produce capabilities that seemed to transcend physical laws. The methodologies represented convergence of human potential and scientific research that had challenged fundamental assumptions about the boundaries of what was achievable through training protocols designed to optimize performance beyond conventional limitations. Dr. Vasquez activated systems that showed the broader implications of Ghost Valley Initiative research. Enhancement protocols that could be applied to other operational scenarios. Training methodologies that transcended conventional military boundaries. Development approaches that optimized human potential for situations requiring performance beyond documented limitations through systematic scientific investigation. The checkpoint incident was just one demonstration of capabilities that had been developed for scenarios where conventional military response proved inadequate. She explained, her voice carrying the weight of research that had anticipated operational requirements existing beyond normal tactical parameters. The precision that seemed impossible represented practical application of human potential that had been systematically enhanced through training. Protocols challenging every assumption about biological boundaries. Wraith 7's continued interaction with the laboratory systems revealed the depth of integration between enhanced human capabilities and supporting technology. Equipment that responded to her presence with efficiency, suggesting years of optimization. Systems designed to amplify rather than replace human potential that had been developed beyond conventional limitations through methodologies existing at the cutting edge of performance enhancement. The enhancement protocols represented years of research into questions that existed at the intersection of human potential and scientific advancement. Dr. Vasquez continued, her words carrying the precision of investigation that had transcended existing knowledge about human development capabilities. The systematic optimization of performance through training methodologies that push development beyond documented limits for operational scenarios that conventional military protocols couldn't adequately address. Brennan found himself surrounded by evidence of human enhancement through systematic training that challenged every assumption about biological limitations. The development of capabilities that existed at the convergence of human potential and scientific optimization. Methodologies designed for scenarios requiring performance beyond conventional military parameters through systematic enhancement. Protocols that transcended normal boundaries. The laboratory contained equipment supporting training approaches that had optimized human potential beyond documented limitations. Environmental simulation systems that challenged conventional training. Assumptions, monitoring technology that tracked enhancement with precision exceeding standard capabilities. Development protocols that facilitated systematic optimization of human performance through methodologies existing beyond normal military boundaries. Dr. Vasquez moved between displays, showing the complete scope of research outcomes that had challenged fundamental assumptions about human capability. Neural processing enhancement that increased reaction speed beyond normal parameters. Sensory optimization that enabled perception under conditions where conventional capabilities would have been inadequate. Physical conditioning that maintained performance under stress levels that would have compromised typical human function. The research represented years of investigation into optimizing human potential through training, protocols that existed at the cutting edge of performance enhancement. She explained, her words carrying the satisfaction of scientific methodology. that had transcended existing knowledge about human development through systematic approaches that challenged conventional limitations. Wraith 7's final interaction with the laboratory systems demonstrated complete integration between enhanced human performance and supporting technology, designed specifically for her optimized capabilities. Equipment that amplified human potential, developed beyond conventional boundaries, systems that worked in conjunction with enhanced sensory acuity and processing speed, optimized through training, methodologies existing outside normal military parameters. The enhancement protocols represented convergence of human potential and scientific research that had produced capabilities, challenging every assumption about the boundaries of what was achievable through systematic development. Dr. Vasquez continued, her voice carrying the weight of discovery that had redefined understanding of human limitations through methodologies that transcended conventional training approaches. As the comprehensive briefing concluded, Brennan began to understand that the checkpoint incident represented something far more significant than an isolated tactical operation. It was demonstration of human potential that had been systematically enhanced beyond conventional limitations through research, methodologies that challenged fundamental assumptions about biological boundaries. The precision that had seemed impossible was actually practical application of capabilities developed through years of scientific investigation into optimizing human performance. The woman known as Wraith 7 represented convergence of human potential and systematic enhancement that had produced abilities existing at the absolute edge of what was achievable through training, protocols designed to transcend conventional military limitations. Her capabilities had been developed through methodologies that challenged every assumption about biological boundaries, creating performance parameters that exceeded documented human norms through systematic scientific optimization. Dr. Vasquez moved to a final control station where she initiated systems that would conclude their interaction. The laboratory equipment began automatic shutdown procedures, securing research data and enhancement protocols behind security measures that existed beyond normal military classification levels. The systematic protection of methodologies that had challenged fundamental assumptions about human potential, ensuring that capabilities developed through years of scientific investigation remained available for operational scenarios requiring performance beyond conventional parameters. The elevator ascent through multiple security levels provided time for Brennan to process information that had redefined his understanding of military capabilities and human potential. The systematic enhancement of performance through scientific methodologies that challenged every assumption about biological limitations. The development of capabilities that existed at the intersection of human potential and systematic optimization, designed for scenarios that conventional training couldn't adequately address. When they reached the surface level, the ordinary appearance of the facility seemed almost surreal after witnessing research that had transcended conventional understanding of human capability. The systematic optimization of performance through training protocols that pushed development beyond documented limits. The enhancement of human potential through methodologies that challenged fundamental assumptions about biological boundaries through scientific investigation, existing at the cutting edge of possibility. Wraith 7 moved toward the exit with the same composed efficiency that had characterized her entire presence. Her capabilities represented years of systematic development through enhancement protocols that had optimized human potential beyond conventional limitations. The precision demonstrated at the checkpoint incident was practical application of training methodologies that challenged every assumption about what was achievable through systematic scientific investigation into transcending biological boundaries. Dr. Vasquez accompanied them to the facility perimeter, her expression carrying the satisfaction of someone who'd devoted her career to questions that existed at the intersection of human potential and scientific advancement. The Ghost Valley Initiative represented convergence of systematic research and performance enhancement that had produced capabilities challenging fundamental assumptions about the boundaries of human possibility through methodologies that transcended conventional training limitations. As they approached the security checkpoint that marked the boundary between classified research and normal military operations, Brennan realized that his understanding of tactical capabilities had been fundamentally transformed. The systematic enhancement of human potential through scientific methodologies that challenged every assumption about biological limitations. The development of performance parameters that exceeded documented human norms through training protocols, designed to optimize capabilities beyond conventional military boundaries. The secure communication device in his pocket activated with a distinctive tone that indicated transmission from classification levels beyond his normal experience. The message was brief, containing only confirmation that his briefing had been completed according to established protocols and that all information accessed during his visit was classified above his standard clearance level. No further investigation into the checkpoint incident would be conducted through normal military channels. Wraith 7 paused at the facility exit, her movement drawing attention to equipment that supported capabilities developed through years of systematic enhancement. Technology designed to amplify rather than replace human potential that had been optimized beyond conventional limitations through training methodologies existing at the cutting edge of performance development. Her presence represented practical application of research that had challenged fundamental assumptions about human possibility. Dr. Vasquez provided final context that connected the checkpoint incident to broader implications of Ghost Valley initiative research. The enhancement protocols developed through years of scientific investigation could be applied to other operational scenarios, requiring performance beyond conventional military parameters. Training methodologies that transcended normal limitations through systematic optimization of human potential for situations that challenged every assumption about biological boundaries. The facility security systems automatically began restricting access to areas that Brennan had been temporarily authorized to visit. Classification protocols that protected research methodologies existing beyond normal military boundaries, ensuring that enhancement procedures remained available for operational scenarios, requiring capabilities that transcended conventional training limitations through systematic scientific optimization of human potential. As they departed the research facility, Brennan found himself processing the complete implications of what he'd witnessed. The systematic enhancement of human capabilities through scientific methodologies that challenged every assumption about biological limitations. The development of performance parameters that existed at the intersection of human potential and systematic optimization designed for scenarios that conventional military training couldn't adequately address through normal protocols. The drive back to Camp Bondsteel provided time for reflection on information that had redefined his understanding of military capabilities and human potential. The checkpoint incident represented practical application of enhancement, research that had transcended conventional limitations through systematic training methodologies designed to optimize performance beyond documented human norms for operational scenarios, requiring capabilities that challenged fundamental assumptions about biological boundaries. Wraith 7's final communication was delivered with the same controlled precision that had characterized their entire interaction. The checkpoint incident had been successfully completed according to mission parameters, neutralizing threats that posed risks to regional stability through conventional military responses that had proven inadequate. Her capabilities represented systematic enhancement of human potential through training methodologies that challenged every assumption about biological limitations for scenarios, requiring performance beyond normal tactical boundaries. Upon returning to his office, Brennan began the process of documenting his experience through classification protocols that would secure information above normal military access levels. The systematic protection of enhancement methodologies that had challenged fundamental assumptions about human potential, ensuring that research outcomes remained available for operational scenarios, requiring capabilities that transcended conventional training limitations through scientific optimization of performance parameters. The incident report was classified immediately upon completion, transferred to storage systems that existed parallel to standard military databases. Information that challenged conventional understanding of human capability, secured through protocols that protected research methodologies existing beyond normal classification boundaries. The systematic enhancement of performance through scientific investigation remained available for scenarios requiring capabilities that transcended conventional military limitations. As evening settled over Camp Bondsteel, Brennan reflected on the day that had transformed his understanding of military operations and human potential. The systematic optimization of capabilities through enhancement, protocols that challenged every assumption about biological limitations. The development of performance parameters that existed at the intersection of human potential and scientific advancement designed for operational scenarios that conventional training couldn't adequately address through normal methodologies. The checkpoint incident would remain classified above normal military access levels, protected by security protocols that ensured enhancement research remained available for scenarios requiring capabilities that transcended conventional limitations. The systematic development of human potential through training, methodologies that challenged fundamental assumptions about biological boundaries, would continue existing in the spaces between official documentation and operational necessity. Some capabilities operated beyond the boundaries of conventional military structure, developed through scientific research that had challenged every assumption about human limitations. The enhancement of performance through systematic methodologies that optimized potential beyond documented boundaries for scenarios requiring capabilities that transcended normal tactical parameters, through scientific investigation existing at the cutting edge of possibility. The woman known as Wraith 7 had demonstrated practical application of human potential that had been systematically enhanced beyond conventional limitations through training protocols designed to transcend biological boundaries. Her capabilities represented convergence of scientific research and performance, optimization that challenged fundamental assumptions about what was achievable through systematic development methodologies existing beyond normal military parameters. The weeks following Brennan's visit to the Ghost Valley facility passed with deceptive normalcy. Daily briefings resumed their routine patterns, patrol schedules maintained their predictable rhythms, and the administrative machinery of Camp Bondsteel continued operating as if nothing had fundamentally changed. Yet beneath this surface calm, something had shifted in the way personnel approached their responsibilities. An awareness that their understanding of military capabilities had been incomplete, that operations existed in spaces between official documentation and practical necessity. Lieutenant Morrison found himself studying surveillance reports with new attention to details that might have seemed insignificant before his exposure to the checkpoint incident. Movement patterns that suggested training beyond conventional military parameters, equipment signatures that didn't match standard tactical gear, communication intercepts that referenced capabilities existing outside normal operational boundaries. The mundane work of intelligence analysis had acquired layers of complexity that challenged his previous assumptions about what was possible within military structure. Major Chun implemented new protocols for classifying unusual incidents, creating categories that acknowledge the existence of capabilities beyond standard military parameters without explicitly documenting their nature. Reports that might have been dismissed as equipment malfunctions or observer error were now subjected to analysis that considered possibilities existing at the edges of conventional understanding. The systematic recognition that military operations encompassed more than official training manuals acknowledged The secure communication system in Brennan's office activated, periodically with updates that provided context for ongoing operations, without revealing specific details. Brief transmissions that confirmed the continued effectiveness of enhanced capabilities in scenarios that conventional military response couldn't adequately address. Status reports that acknowledged the existence of assets whose capabilities transcended normal tactical boundaries while maintaining classification levels that protected methodologies from unauthorized access. Intelligence briefings began incorporating analysis frameworks that considered possibilities beyond conventional military capabilities, threat assessments that acknowledged the potential existence of enhanced human performance parameters, tactical evaluations that considered scenarios requiring capabilities existing outside normal training boundaries, operational planning that accommodated assets whose effectiveness exceeded documented human limitations through systematic enhancement methodologies. Dr. Vasquez transmitted periodic research updates through channels that bypass standard military communication systems. Progress reports on enhancement protocols that continued optimizing human potential beyond conventional boundaries. Development milestones that advanced capabilities existing at the intersection of human biology and systematic scientific investigation. Breakthrough discoveries that challenged fundamental assumptions about what was achievable through targeted training methodologies. The regional security situation evolved in ways that suggested the presence of capabilities operating beyond visible military structure. Threat networks that had previously operated with impunity began experiencing systematic disruption through methods that left no traceable evidence. Weapons smuggling operations discovered that their previously secure routes had become unreliable for reasons that intelligence analysis couldn't adequately explain through conventional tactical assessment. Wraith 7's continued operations remained invisible to standard military observation, yet their effects rippled through regional security dynamics in ways that suggested precision intervention beyond normal tactical capabilities. Hostile elements that had posed persistent threats to stability found their operations compromised through methods that challenged every assumption about surveillance and interdiction effectiveness within conventional military frameworks. The Enhancement Research Facility continued its work in developing human potential beyond documented limitations, with Dr. Vasquez's team expanding their investigation into capabilities that existed at the cutting edge of biological possibility. Neural pathway optimization protocols that increased processing speed beyond normal human parameters. Sensory enhancement methodologies that enabled perception under conditions where conventional capabilities would have been inadequate. Stress adaptation training that maintained performance under extreme operational pressure. New candidates underwent evaluation for enhancement protocols that would prepare them for scenarios requiring capabilities beyond conventional military training. Selection criteria that identified individuals whose baseline potential could be optimized through systematic scientific methodology. Assessment procedures that predicted successful adaptation to training regimens existing outside normal military parameters. Preparation protocols that established foundation for enhancement development beyond documented human limitations. The training environments within the facility expanded to encompass scenarios that reflected evolving operational requirements for enhanced human capabilities. Environmental chambers that simulated conditions exceeding normal tactical parameters. Simulation systems that challenged enhanced perception and reaction capabilities. Stress testing protocols that verified performance maintenance under extreme operational conditions that would have compromised conventional human function. Brennan received periodic briefings that provided strategic context for operations, involving enhanced capabilities without revealing specific tactical details. Regional threat assessments that acknowledged the effectiveness of assets operating beyond conventional military visibility. Stability analyses that recognize the contribution of capabilities existing outside normal tactical boundaries. Operational summaries that confirm the continued value of enhanced human performance in scenarios that challenged traditional military approaches. The implications of Ghost Valley research extended beyond immediate tactical applications, with enhancement methodologies showing potential for addressing broader military challenges that conventional training couldn't adequately resolve. Performance optimization techniques that could improve effectiveness across multiple operational domains. Stress adaptation protocols that enhanced resilience under conditions that typically compromised human function. Sensory enhancement that enabled perception and decision-making under extreme environmental conditions. International intelligence services began detecting signatures that suggested the existence of capabilities beyond their understanding of current military technology. Operational outcomes that challenged conventional tactical analysis, precision. Interventions that exceeded documented human performance parameters. Effectiveness levels that suggested systematic enhancement of human potential through methodologies existing outside normal military development frameworks. The research facility implemented expanded security protocols that protected enhancement methodologies from unauthorized access while enabling continued development of human potential beyond conventional limitations. Classification systems that secured training protocols existing at the cutting edge of biological possibility. Access controls that restricted knowledge of enhancement techniques to personnel with demonstrated need for operational effectiveness. Compartmentalization procedures that prevented compromise of systematic scientific investigation into transcending human boundaries. Dr. Vasquez's team achieved breakthrough discoveries that advanced understanding of human potential optimization beyond previous scientific knowledge. Neuroplasticity research that enabled targeted enhancement of cognitive processing capabilities. Biological adaptation studies that facilitated systematic improvement of physical performance parameters. Stress response optimization that maintained effectiveness under conditions that would have compromised normal human function through conventional training approaches. The enhancement protocols demonstrated scalability that suggested broader applications for military personnel operating in scenarios requiring capabilities beyond standard training boundaries. Systematic methodologies that could optimize human potential across diverse operational environments. Training approaches that transcended conventional limitations through scientific investigation into biological enhancement possibilities. Development frameworks that prepared personnel for scenarios that challenged fundamental assumptions about human capability. Wraith 7's operational effectiveness continued providing validation for enhancement research outcomes, with mission success rates that exceeded conventional tactical predictions through systematic optimization of human performance parameters. Precision intervention capabilities that resolve threats to regional stability. Operational stealth that prevented detection through standard military surveillance methods. Tactical effectiveness that addressed scenarios where conventional military response had proven inadequate through normal approaches. Regional military commands began implementing protocols that acknowledged the potential existence of enhanced capabilities while maintaining classification security that protected operational methodologies from unauthorized disclosure. Intelligence frameworks that considered possibilities beyond conventional military parameters. Threat assessment procedures that recognized effectiveness levels exceeding documented human limitations. Operational planning that accommodated assets whose capabilities transcended normal tactical boundaries through systematic enhancement. The facility's research expanded into areas that explored the fundamental boundaries of human potential optimization through scientific methodology. Genetic expression studies that investigated biological foundations for enhanced performance. Capability neurological research that mapped pathways for optimized cognitive processing. Physiological investigation that identified mechanisms for transcending conventional physical limitations through targeted training protocols. Enhancement candidates underwent increasingly sophisticated selection and preparation procedures that identified optimal potential for systematic capability, development beyond normal human parameters, psychological assessment that predicted successful adaptation to training existing outside conventional military boundaries, biological evaluation that determines suitability for enhancement protocols, challenging fundamental assumptions about human limitation, preparation regimens that established foundation for optimization methodologies, transcending documented capability boundaries. The training environments evolved to incorporate scenarios that reflected emerging operational requirements for enhanced human performance in situations that conventional military preparation couldn't adequately address. Simulation systems that challenged optimized perception and reaction capabilities under extreme conditions. Environmental chambers that tested enhanced performance maintenance under stress levels that would have compromised normal human function. Tactical scenarios that validated effectiveness of systematic enhancement methodologies. International security dynamics began reflecting the influence of capabilities operating beyond visible military structure, with regional stability improving through methods that challenged conventional understanding of tactical intervention effectiveness. Threat neutralization that occurred through precision methods exceeding documented human performance parameters. Operational security that prevented detection through standard surveillance approaches. Strategic effectiveness that addressed complex scenarios requiring capabilities beyond normal military training boundaries. Dr. Vasquez published classified research findings that advanced scientific understanding of human potential optimization through systematic enhancement methodologies. Peer review processes that validated breakthrough discoveries in biological capability transcendence. Research outcomes that challenged fundamental assumptions about limitations imposed by conventional training approaches. Scientific methodology that demonstrated practical applications for systematic human performance enhancement beyond documented boundaries. The Ghost Valley Initiative established protocols for expanding enhancement research into broader military applications while maintaining security classifications that protected methodologies from unauthorized access. Development frameworks that could optimize human potential across diverse operational domains. Training approaches that transcended conventional limitations through scientific investigation into systematic capability enhancement. Operational integration that prepared enhanced personnel for scenarios challenging traditional military effectiveness boundaries. Brennan's understanding of military capabilities continued evolving as he received periodic updates that provided strategic context for operations involving enhanced human performance beyond conventional tactical parameters. Regional assessments that acknowledged effectiveness of assets operating outside normal military visibility. Operational summaries that confirmed continued value of systematic enhancement in scenarios that challenged traditional approaches. Strategic planning that incorporated capabilities existing at the intersection of human potential and scientific optimization. The research facility implemented advanced protocols for candidate selection and enhancement. Development that pushed human potential. Optimization beyond previous scientific achievement. Assessment procedures that identified optimal biological and psychological foundations for systematic capability transcendence. Preparation methodologies that established foundation for training existing outside conventional military parameters. Enhancement protocols that challenged fundamental assumptions about boundaries, limiting human performance through targeted scientific investigation. Wraith 7's continued operational success provided ongoing validation for research methodologies that had systematically enhanced human capabilities beyond documented limitations. Mission effectiveness that resolved complex scenarios through precision intervention exceeding conventional tactical parameters. Operational stealth that prevented detection through standard military surveillance approaches. Strategic impact that addressed regional security challenges requiring capabilities. beyond normal military training boundaries through systematic enhancement optimization. The implications of Ghost Valley research extended into areas that suggested revolutionary potential for military effectiveness through systematic, human performance enhancement beyond conventional capability boundaries. Training methodologies that could optimize potential across diverse operational environments. Enhancement protocols that transcended traditional limitations through scientific investigation into biological possibility frontiers. Development frameworks that prepared personnel for scenarios challenging fundamental assumptions about human tactical effectiveness through systematic optimization approaches. International military observers began detecting operational signatures that suggested the existence of capabilities, challenging their understanding of current human performance limitations within military contexts. Effectiveness levels that exceeded conventional tactical predictions through systematic enhancement methodologies, precision intervention that resolved complex scenarios requiring capabilities beyond standard military training parameters. Operational outcomes that validated scientific investigation into human potential optimization beyond documented boundaries through targeted development protocols. Up next, you've got two more standout stories right on your screen. If this one hit the mark, you won't want to pass these up. Just click and check them out.